you.
First of all, thank you very much for inviting us to take part in this seminar. We are very pleased as it gives us the opportunity to learn practices that can be very useful for describing provenances, especially in ALMA. Our presentation will be structured in two parts. First, we will explain how we work on provenance within the context of the catalog and how this work is reflected in the former owner's database. Then, we will address issues directly related to ALMA. Our library is one of the richest heritage libraries in Spain, and we are fully aware of the responsibility and opportunity this represents. As David Pearson once said at a CERL seminar on provenance a few years ago, we must work to generate a critical mass of data. But to what end? To create information and resources that are meaningful, engaging, and useful, not only for researchers and students, but also for the wider public. Beyond being valuable elements for cultural and social history, this kind of evidence, the provenance marks, add a material and personal dimension. They provide history, experience, and anecdote to the book object. So how do we do this? By recording provenance and use information in the copy-specific field of our catalog, using a partially standardized format and prioritizing the transcription or description of ownership marks, by creating authority records for nearly all found former owners, with very few exceptions, and by ensuring that these standardized names are accessible directly through the catalog. The guiding principle behind these efforts is to ensure that the information recorded in our catalog entries is, if not always complete, at least accurate. We are fully aware that in many cases, the data can be improved or expanded over time. The main showcase of our provenance work is the former owners database. The first version dates back to 2009 and was developed and maintained by the IT team at the CRAI library. In June 2021, a new and improved version was launched, now externally managed by the companies Nubilum and Coeli. As of today, we have compiled a total of 1,758 authority records for former owners, both individuals and institutions. Of these, 1,029 are complete and have been incorporated into the former owners database. The remaining 728 records are still pending completion and cannot be added to the database. Let us now take a closer look at how we manage and exploit provenance information. A key aspect of this work is the correspondence between the authority records and the former owners database. For this reason, it is very important to create an accurate authority record.
We will now outline the Mark 21 fields we use to describe provenance information, bearing in mind that we strictly follow the guidelines set out in the manual CANTIC. CANTIC stands for Authority Catalogue of Names and Titles in Catalonia, which is based on the RDA standard for the creation of authority records. As you can see, here are two authority records of former owners. One for an individual, this one on the left, Juliana Morell, as you can see in the 100 field. And then the other one for an entity, Convent of Saint Blai. When creating an authority record, we begin by situating the former owner both chronologically and geographically, using MAR 21 fields 046, right here at the top, and 370. In field 370, beyond the basic subfields $A and $B for place of birth and place of death, we also apply other subfields. We apply a $E, you can see right here. We apply a $E for places of activity for individuals and to indicate the place of residence in the case of entities. We also use a $F for associated autonomous communities, and a $C for associated countries, like in here that we see Spain and France. Then we use the field 375 to describe gender. In this case, right here on the left, 375, so you can see we have a female former owner. We also use field 670, source data found, for sources and references with information about the former owner. However, in many cases, it is not possible to find an external source of information regarding the former owner. This is why we must rely on the ownership mark itself as the basis for the heading and other fields of the record. We recorded the following way. Here we go. Here's an example with the 670 here using the ownership mark as the reference. As you can see, we recorded this way with source, font in Catalan, source, then ownership mark. Then we use the shelf number right here. And then with the $B, we indicate the specific location of the mark in the document. In this case, guarda, which is flyleaf. And then we add the transcription of the ownership mark. So that we do that when we don't have any other sources of information. Okay. Then we use field 856 down here for electronic location and access. We add links here to different internal and external resources. In this example, you can see our blog, the link to our blog. It's right here. And then also a link to the Catalan encyclopedia with information about this former owner, and then other links to exhibitions about this former owner. Let's move on to a special field, which is field 859. This is a special local field with specific subfields used to display ownership mark information in the database. Let's take a look at the subfields in more detail. As you can see, first, we recorded the type of ownership mark, if it's an ex libris or another type of mark. So we recorded here using a controlled internal vocabulary, expressed here in Catalan with a $C, Spanish with the $E, and then English with the $A. This is followed then by a description or transcription of the mark entered in subfield Z. The dating of the mark is also recorded using subfield Z. And then an additional $Z might be used for notes, but we rarely use this one. Then the next subfields relate to the image shown in the database. The ownership mark may be shown in isolation, that is just the ownership mark. And in this case, we use a $3M. But when relevant, we also use $3P to show an image with the physical context of the mark. So that is the whole page, for example, not just the mark, but the whole page where the mark appears. Then we also use the identifier of the bibliographic record to which the item bearing the mark belongs, using the subfield X right here. Okay, so that will be specific for the database to show the image on the database. Finally, and moving forward, the following fields now are used to qualify former owners. These are also local mark fields. For example, in this record here of the convent, we use 968 field to indicate the type of entity, such as a convent or a monastery or a school or a library. In this case, as you can see, field 968 indicates that this is a convent. For personal names, this field is used to include titles of nobility or dignities in the ecclesiastical hierarchy. And as you can see, we record the terms in 3 different languages, in Catalan, in Spanish, and English. Then we use field 973 to specify the religious order or congregation to which the individual or institution belonged. Here you see like 2 examples, one here for the convent, and then if you look at the other record, you can also see that this former owner was a Dominican. And then finally, field 974 is used to record the occupation of the former owner. In case of field 974, occupation, the terms are drawn from a controlled vocabulary, Thesaurus UB, developed by the CRAI at the University of Barcelona. As for field 973, religious order, we are currently working to align its terms with those in the Cantic Authority catalog that I mentioned earlier. Regarding field 968, type of entity, the situation is more complex as terms must be recorded in the singular form. Therefore, so far, for both fields 973 and 968, we currently rely on internally maintained controlled vocabularies. Now, we chose to implement these local 900 fields in order to provide multilingual access to the database, specifically in Catalan, Spanish, and English. For this reason, we opted not to use the standard Mark 21 fields, such as 368 or 373 for affiliation, for example, or 374 for occupation. Nevertheless, we're considering using them in the near future, but we also need these 900 fields, special fields for the database so that we can use terms in 3 different languages.
Before proceeding, it is important to note that we have been using ALMA since 2021, and the system migration happened at the same time as another major development. Since its foundation in 1996, we have been part of the CUC, University Union Catalog of Catalonia. Until 2021, each participating institution maintained its own separate bibliographic records and, where applicable, its own authority records. However, from that day onward, the consortium adopted a shared bibliographic and authority record model. This has obvious benefits, but specifically regarding provenances, there are also some inconveniences, such as a certain lack of control of the authority records. and also issues in the display of former owners' names in the bibliographic records. Yet, this unified catalog still allows for the integration of local fields in both record types. Back to authority records and our database, it is important to remember that the contents of the authority records are directly aligned with the corresponding entries in our provenance database. This is a distinctive feature of the former owners project and brings several key advantages. Reduction in time and human and technical resources, improved interoperability between catalog and database, which has a highly positive impact on dissemination and user access, enhanced compliance with cataloging standards supported by shared tools and guidelines. For example, the use of the Thesaurus UB mentioned earlier. In this regard, we are fortunate to benefit from the expertise and guidance of colleagues from the CRAI Technical Processing Unit and the Standardization Unit of the Central National Library of Catalonia, of the Catalan National Library, sorry. Another example of the value of working in this way is how we use 500 and 510 Mark 21 fields to establish relationships between friars and institutions. The database here shows the list of some Augustinian friars from the Convent de Sant Agustí of Barcelona, whose names have been found in our books. However, this correspondence also entails certain constraints imposed by cataloging standards. For instance, we are not permitted to use these "see also" fields to document cases of bequests and donations, even though doing so would be highly beneficial, and we have numerous instances where such an application would be appropriate. Another limitation is the prohibition against using unpublished archival sources in field 670 as a basis for authority data, despite their usefulness in identifying lesser-known individuals. Now we will briefly introduce our database, which some of you may be already familiar with. In general terms, the guiding principle of the database is to prioritize usability and its effectiveness as a discovery tool. At present, the database contains 1,225 marks of 1,033 former owners in 1,800 images. In fact, images are central, as the first element displayed is an image gallery. There are three models of navigation: by marks, by owners, and by map. The system offers multiple search options with the possibility of combining them. You see also here a timeline in order to contextualize the provenance data. And then the map highlights towns or cities with a red circle and autonomous communities, other regions and countries with a black square. When displaying Catalonia, the density of red circles reflects the strongly local character of the collection. Searches can be made in 3 languages, as already said: in Catalan, Spanish, and English. Earlier, we saw two authority records, and now we will see these records on the database. Juliana Morell. I have to say that now we are working on field 370. That's why the name France doesn't appear. So here we have this woman, and then we will have a look at the Convent d'Assemblée.
Okay, just go back to the presentation. All right. So now we turn to what is the second part of our talk, which main focus is ALMA. Now, when we think about how ALMA affects our work with provenance, it has not been entirely straightforward to identify significant repercussions. In fact, the only clear impact we have observed relates to search functionalities. So how can provenance information be searched in ALMA? Well, within the ALMA application, searches can be carried out by authority record or by the name of the former owner, as you can see in this video. Yeah, typically we use the advanced search or the option browse bibliographic headings or browse authority headings. So going to resources and then browse bibliographic headings, but we also have the option to browse authority headings. Okay. In advanced search, it is possible to query all fields of the authority record, except for field 46, the coded dates, and field 375, gender. Regarding field 859 that I mentioned before, which corresponds to the ownership mark in the database, since it's not a regular Mark 21 field, ALMA currently retrieves only the content of subfields U and Z. Provenance information can also be searched in the local field 993 of the bibliographic record, which includes copy-specific information. This is done using the advanced search, preferably using the option contains phrase. So we go to physical information, then contains phrase, and then here we can search our former owner. Actually, each time we find a new ownership mark with an unknown name, we perform such a search to gather all the copies belonging to the same former owner. It should be noted that until 2009, provenance information was entered in this field as a free text, often partially and sometimes with errors. So why did we choose this local 993 field in the bibliographic record rather than Mark 21 fields 541 or 561 to record provenance? Well, because we did not want to mix copy-specific information with bibliographic record data. So since we did not have exactly the option to do that, otherwise using Mark 21, we use this special local fields, such as 993. However, we do use these fields in the case of manuscripts because there's only one copy of that. Okay. Provenance information can also be searched through the discovery tool, Primo. Our discovery tool is called CRAI. It should be noted, though, that the rare book collection has its own dedicated scope, CRAI Fonts Antiques. So that's to search only in our collection. Within this environment, using the advanced search, it is possible to search through the bibliographic records by name using filters, either in a specific index for former owners or as author creator. In this case, here we're searching using the index former owners. So you can specifically search using names of former owners. In addition, the content of the local field that I mentioned, 993 with copy-specific information, can be searched in a dedicated index. Item information. Wait, that's the other one. That's the one. So in here we can search using item information, preferably using the option contains in this order. And in here, we're going to retrieve the information in this local field 993 of the bibliographic record, where we describe the ownership marks as well. And finally, in the general CRAI, now we are not in CRAI Fonts Antiques. This is the general CRAI. So in this catalog, by contrast, in advanced search, play this. The names of former owners can only be searched as author names, whereas the contents of the local field 993 are searched under any field, preferably using the option as well, contains in this order. And then obviously filtering per library, choosing our specific library. So now we've searched using author created, and now we're going to try any field. And then we're going to filter and choose our library. Because you can see all of the libraries of the university, and we choose just our library. So as you can see, there are various options to search provenance information. Now, to enable access to the aforementioned specific index of former owners in Primo, we create field 700 in the bibliographic record. The 700 and 710 fields for former owners are coded as follows. So we use field 700, 710, followed by a $E with the relator term, then a $3 with the shelf number, and then a $5 with the institution to which the field applies. Here we have a few examples. The relator term that we use in $E, following the RDA guidelines, is former owner. As you can see here, it says propietari anterior, which is the translation in Catalan. Okay. Nevertheless, RDA offers the possibility to use other terms related to provenance and use, such as annotator or donor, binder, that we might consider using in the future. But for now, we use former owner. Once the field has been created, we use the F3 function to retrieve the former owner's name from Cantic, the Catalan authority record catalog, mentioned earlier. Subsequently, a 911 field is automatically generated, which is basically a copy of the field designed to create a specific index for former owners. That's what you can see here below. That you can see that it's basically, these are copies of the 700 fields with the information of the former owner. So that basically is used so that we can search using this specific index of former owners. And well, last but not least, can the former owners database be linked to Primo? Well, that is a question that we have asked ourselves many times, since we believe it would certainly be highly desirable. Actually, users have asked us about this on several occasions, but at present, it seems that it is not possible. Currently, access to linked open data authority information from bibliographic records is managed centrally by the CSUC, which is the consortium of Catalan universities, responsible of the Union Catalogue, and unfortunately does not show our database yet. At the moment, it seems that bibliographic records in Primo display the names in fields 100 and 700 that have authority records. The difficulty or the issue lies in the fact that Primo, by default, focuses on the entity work of RDA and groups versions by combining author and title, which means that each bibliographic record in the group displays the sum of all authorities associated with the group. In practice, as you can see, it produces some very odd and confusing results, gathering all of these authorities, which are authority information coming from different records. And we hope that this can be solved soon, because it's quite confusing at the moment. And well, this is it. That will be all for today. Our intervention has been highly descriptive and focused on all that has to do with provenance from the point of view of standardization, codification, and display on our catalog, which at the same time is a product of library management system, ALMA. Besides, we have introduced the former owners database, essential showcase of all the practices that we have just mentioned. However, what we have not done is talk about other aspects which are more open and probably more attractive of our work on provenance, nor the dilemmas that this work sometimes brings up. In any case, we hope our presentation has been interesting and useful to you. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for